Story 1. It's been 2 years since I cut ties with my ex-friend, Emma. Looking back, I can't believe how long I tolerated her behavior. I guess it's time to share my story. I met Emma when we were 13. She was being bullied at school, and I became her only friend. Her parents showered me with gifts, calling me Emma's savior. They constantly reminded me that I needed to always support Emma because of her bullying experience. At that age, I didn't realize I was being groomed to be Emma's caretaker. We also met Kate, Emma's childhood friend, and we became a trio. By college, it became clear that Emma was lagging in maturity. Her mom would ask me to help Emma with basic tasks like catching the bus or driving her, even though Emma could drive. This continued even after I moved out and lived an hour away. Emma's mom would try to guilt me into helping. The friendship became one-sided, so I started teaching Emma to do things independently. But the problems only grew. One particularly memorable incident was when we traveled with my new college group. We nearly missed flights because Emma would wander off to call her mom and get lost. She'd lose things, get scammed, or randomly start unpacking her luggage in public. She always needed help, which stressed me out constantly. She never contributed to Uber fares or food costs. When the hotel mixed up our rooms, leaving 3 people with a single bed while Emma got 2 king beds to herself, she refused to swap. During that trip, Emma even tried to third-wheel my one-date night with my significant other. She left endless missed calls, pestered us for our location, and wanted me to pay for her Uber to meet us. I cried many times during that trip, and my significant other admitted he disliked how Emma treated me. By the end of the trip, Emma was still oblivious, insisting my stress was caused by being too uptight. Me: Emma, you need to be more considerate of others. We've been stressed trying to keep track of you this whole trip. Emma: you're just too uptight. Relax and enjoy the vacation. After that trip, my college friends politely asked me not to invite Emma again. For Emma's 25th birthday, she invited me and Kate to dinner. At the last minute, she booked a 5-star hotel room for an overnight stay and asked us each to pay. I initially declined, saying I had plans before and after the dinner. Kate privately messaged me. Kate, this is really important to Emma. It'll mean a lot if we did the hotel. Just pay, and we'll do things differently next time. I gave in and paid. During dinner, Emma was unimpressed by my gift of a Chanel lipstick. When it was time to pay the bill, Emma announced, Emma, you guys pay between the 2 of you. I'm the birthday girl. Annoyed, I responded, we should have discussed this beforehand. To my surprise, both Emma and Kate turned on me. Emma and Kate, you should know the birthday girl never pays. While they went to other bars, I faked feeling sick and went back to the hotel room, calling other friends and my significant other for support. That's when I decided to end the friendship. I left first thing in the morning for another event, upsetting both Emma and Kate because they expected me to drive them home. I hadn't spoken to them for months when they reached out wanting to celebrate my birthday. The event went surprisingly well until the bill came. I don't drink, but they went through 2 bottles of wine and cocktails. Emma had the audacity to suggest I pay. Emma, you invited us out. You're the birthday girl treating us to a night out. Me: are you serious? This is exactly what you did on your birthday. We eventually agreed to split the food 3 ways, and they would pay for their own drinks. But Kate's card declined, and Emma forgot her PIN. I ended up paying. Kate transferred me immediately, but Emma didn't. And so began the final chapter. For weeks, Emma kept dodging my requests to pay me back for dinner and some concert tickets she also owed. I sent my bank details again and started giving deadlines. Me: please have this done by tomorrow. Emma: hey, how was your weekend? Or she'd just leave me on read. The audacity. I eventually called Emma to ask why she couldn't pay me back. She admitted she didn't know how to transfer money. We walked through it together, but she still never made the payment. I chased her up again via text and was left on read. Ghosted. I asked Kate for help. Kate, that's weird. She always pays me back. That hurt to hear. I chased up Emma again a few days later. Left on read again. I'd had enough. I sent her both concert tickets and told her to go with her sister because I was done. Emma immediately paid me. It took almost 2 months and threats. She made all these excuses. Emma, I'm tired. I don't check my phone. You don't know how hard it is to be a receptionist. You expect so much from me. This outburst has come out of nowhere. I can't believe you're punishing me. Me. I'm a lawyer. I think I understand work stress. This isn't an outburst. It's been building up for years. I sent her a long text about everything I had bottled up. The travel story, her birthday, my birthday, being taken for granted, etc. Then I asked for space. Kate called me angrily. Kate, you need to apologize for hurting Emma's feelings. Me. No, I'm not apologizing for this. I'd like for both of you to not contact me. A few days later, Emma sent me a long text. She apologized, but then accused me of being inconsiderate, controlling, and impatient. She justified never making an effort by saying she was a guest to events and trips, while I was apparently in charge. She then said this was all my fault because I should have been clearer and basically nagged her more to make an effort, plan, pay, etc. She ended her text passive-aggressively. Emma, since you're so hung up about this and need me to make more effort or whatever, I'll plan the next thing. Let's do tomorrow. Where do you want to go? I'll book. Instead, I asked for a month of no contact. She left me on read. A month passed, and I got another angry text from her. Emma, it's been a month plus 1 day now. Why haven't you reached out? I said I'll book this time. Stop hiding. We need to meet up and fight it out. I declined and said the break helped me realize I'm happier keeping our distance for now, and I wished her well. She and her family all immediately blocked me on social media, and that was it. Looking back, I realize I made many mistakes. My boundaries weren't strong enough. I fell for the love bombing and shouldn't have felt so guilty saying no. But now I know, and it will never happen again. These past 2 years without Emma have been liberating. I've focused on nurturing healthier friendships and setting clear boundaries. I've learned to recognize red flags early on and not let guilt or obligation dictate my relationships. Story 2. I live in a block where most houses are 2 stories high, except for a car detailing and accessories store in the middle. This store's roof makes every house on our half-block visible to each other. It's usually a nice neighborhood, but we have this one neighbor who's managed to combine every bad neighbor habit into one person. The biggest issue is the noise. This guy blasts awful music all day long, which wouldn't be so bad if he respected volume limits and quiet hours. Everyone in the block has called the police on him for noise after midnight at least once. When my family called the police at 3 a.m., they told us the sound had already exceeded the permitted decibels before they even turned onto our street. But I guess money isn't a problem for this guy because he keeps doing it. One day, I was chatting with our next-door neighbor about the situation. Me. Did you hear that racket last night? I couldn't sleep a wink. Neighbor. Tell me about it. I've called the police 3 times this month alone. Me. Same here. I don't understand how he gets away with it. Neighbor. Must be paying the fines without breaking a sweat. It's infuriating. The noise wasn't the only problem. This guy is also a creep who stares through every window he can. Most neighbors have installed tinted windows or heavy curtains because of him. I couldn't even enjoy sunlight in my room because he'd leer whenever my underage sister was around. One afternoon, I caught him staring again and confronted him. Me. Hey, stop staring into our windows. It's creepy and inappropriate. Creepy neighbor. I'm not doing anything wrong. It's my right to look wherever I want. Me. Not when it involves staring at minors. Keep it up, and I'll report you. He just scoffed and walked away, but I noticed he was a bit more careful about his staring after that. The situation reached a boiling point when he decided to retaliate against all the noise complaints. He actually called the police because of a newborn baby crying. When the officers arrived, they were not amused. Police officer: "Sir, are you seriously complaining about a baby crying?" Creepy neighbor: "It's disturbing my peace. They should control that noise." Police officer: "The baby isn't breaking any laws. Please don't waste our time with this nonsense." As the police left, I could see the frustration on the creepy neighbor's face. It was a small victory, but it didn't solve our bigger problem. That's when I started noticing something interesting. Despite being a night owl who blasts music until dawn, this guy absolutely hates being woken up in the morning, especially by birds chirping. You could hear him complaining and slamming his windows shut when the birds started their morning songs. An idea started forming in my mind. I decided to talk to the other neighbors to see if they shared my thoughts on birds. Me: "Hey, quick question. How do you feel about birds chirping in the morning?" Most neighbors responded positively. Neighbor 1: "Oh, I love it. It's such a peaceful way to wake up." Neighbor 2: "It reminds me of being in the countryside. So refreshing." Neighbor 3: "Anything's better than that awful music at night." Encouraged by their responses, I approached the owner of the detailing store with a proposition. Me: "Hi there. I was wondering if you'd be okay with me scattering some bird seeds on your roof." Store owner: "Bird seeds? Why?" Me: "Well, I thought it might attract more birds to the area. Most neighbors seem to like the idea." Store owner: "You know what? Absolutely yes. That guy keeps throwing trash on my roof, and I have to clean the gutters every week. Maybe the birds will keep him in check." With permission granted, I put my plan into action. Every day at 5 a.m., I'd scatter seeds on the store's roof. Within a week, we had a small army of birds visiting regularly. I didn't stop there. I started putting out twigs, leaves, and even dog hair to encourage the birds to build nests nearby. I also set up a water source in my window for the birds. The change was noticeable almost immediately. The morning air was filled with chirping, and you could hear our creepy neighbor cursing and slamming things in frustration. Creepy neighbor: "Shut up, you stupid birds, let me sleep." But the birds, of course, paid no attention to his complaints. I decided to take my revenge a step further. I have a friend who breeds insects for exotic pet owners, so I gave him a call. Me: "Hey buddy, I need a favor. Can you get me about 100 crickets?" Friend: "Crickets? What for?" Me: "Let's just say it's for a special project. I'll explain later." Friend: "All right, I'm intrigued. I'll give you a discount." The next day, armed with my box of crickets, I headed to the roof bright and early. I scattered them along with the seeds, watching as the birds eagerly pecked at this new treat. But as I'd hoped, they couldn't eat all the crickets. The survivors scurried to the nearest shelter they could find our creepy neighbor's open balcony. The result was better than I could have imagined. Not only was he woken up by the birds, but now he had a chorus of crickets chirping inside his own home. Creepy neighbor: "What the hell is this? Where are these damn crickets coming from?" I could hear him stomping around, trying to catch the elusive insects. Now, you might think he could just get rid of the birds, right? Well, here's the kicker: the species of birds that had taken up residence in our block are protected by environmental law. If he tried to harm them, he'd face a much heftier fine than his usual noise pollution tickets. One morning, I overheard him on the phone, presumably with animal control. Creepy neighbor: "I need someone to come remove these birds immediately. They're driving me crazy." Pause. Creepy neighbor: "What do you mean you can't remove them? They're pests." Another pause. Creepy neighbor: "Protected species? This is ridiculous." He slammed the phone down in frustration. The transformation of our block has been remarkable. We've gone from being the noisiest part of the neighborhood to the most idyllic. Every morning, we wake up to a chorus of birdsong, like something out of a Disney movie. There are easily over 30 birds that visit regularly now. The other day, I was chatting with a neighbor about the change. Neighbor: "You know, I never thought I'd say this, but our block is actually peaceful now." Me: "It's amazing what a difference some bird seed can make, isn't it?" Neighbor: "And the best part is watching that guy squirm every morning. Karma at its finest." We shared a laugh, enjoying the sweet sound of chirping birds and the distant cursing of our very distressed, very sleep-deprived creepy neighbor. Is it petty? Maybe a little. But after months of sleepless nights, inappropriate staring, and general inconsiderate behavior, it feels like justice. Our block may be in the middle of a bustling city, but now we have our own little oasis of nature, complete with a daily show of a grumpy neighbor fighting a losing battle against some very persistent birds. Story 3. To give people a picture of myself at the time this happened, I worked for the state dealing with public benefits and assistance, such as the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program and Medicaid. I'm 6 feet 2 inches tall. I used to be a powerlifter and weigh 340 pounds. So yes, I'm a big guy. The dress code for the state is business casual unless you are working at the central office or a public-facing position. I worked on the phones 90% of the time. On the day in question in 2018, I was wearing the one and only suit I own, and being the size that I am, the suit is tailored. Now, this was a few years ago, so some things will be paraphrased as my memory is faulty. I had a few too many blows to the head in my youth. I am the dungeon master for a Dungeons & Dragons game every Thursday at a friend's house. I was in my late 30s, and as I was leaving work, my friend called me and asked if I could pick him up some new dice, as his 3 dogs decided that his dice looked like treats. So, I hit a local game store on my way to his place. While I was there, I noticed a frustrated young woman trying to convey something to the owner. She was using American Sign Language, the only other language I understand other than English. I tapped her on the shoulder and signed to her to see if I could help her out. She explained that she was looking into getting into Dungeons & Dragons with some of her deaf friends from school. So, I asked her some questions and found that they had never played, but due to the success of Critical Role, they wanted to try, and she was going to be the dungeon master. I helped her get everything she would need for new players, and she was just so happy that someone could help her out using American Sign Language. She thought it was really thoughtful of the owner to learn. I explained to her that she had been working with the owner when I got there, and that I was just an avid Dungeons & Dragons fan and a dungeon master myself, and that I was just stopping in for some dice. She looked at me confused and signed, "So you don't work here?" "Nope, I just wanted to help since I know sign language." We laughed. So, back to getting dice. That's when Karen strikes. She starts yelling at the owner of the store, wanting to know why the owner was spending all his time helping the cute young woman, but would not be bothered to help an elderly customer who just wanted to get her grandchild a video game. This game store does not sell video games. Now, let's paint a picture. Karen here is about 5 feet tall, has the standard Karen haircut, and maybe weighs 240 pounds. She is in her early 40s. If she has a grandchild that can play video games, some poor choices may have been made in her past. The actual owner of the store said, "I help people that come to the counter, and if they need help with something out on the store floor, I help them as best as I can." Then Karen points at me and says, "No, I'm talking about the owner." The actual owner of the store and I look at each other and at the same time say, "Lady, I do not work here, and he is the owner. This place does not sell video games." We smile at each other. This is where Karen explodes, asking why a game store does not sell video games and what she is going to do now. She waddles over to me and starts poking me in the chest, ranting something along the lines of, "I should be nicer to older customers, and they are the ones keeping my store open." At this point, I pull out my state employee badge, point at it, and say slowly, "Lady, I don't work here." I also tell her she can go to the gaming store next door to get what she wants. I then explained that by state and federal law, by poking me in the chest, she was guilty of assault. At this point, she sputtered and then slapped me. When I started to talk again, she slapped me again. At this point, I got angry, stood to my full height, and yelled at the top of my lungs that if she touched me one more time, I would defend myself, and she would not like the results. At this point, the owner has called the police and has the phone on speaker. We all hear when dispatch states that the officer is 2 minutes out. She screams and then tries to slap me again. I catch her by the wrist, spin her around, and pin her hand to her back. I grab her other hand and hold both her hands behind her back and at arm's length so that she couldn't kick me in the shins. This is when the police show up. Now, when you have a guy standing a foot taller, holding a screaming woman at bay, cops are automatically going to think that you are in the wrong. Officer 1 is a lady, and Officer 2 is a man. Officer 1 comes in first and sees this, saying, "Sir, please let go of the woman." I said, "I will as long as she won't hit me again." Karen starts going off about how I hit her and that she was just defending herself and that I need to be arrested. Officer 2, hearing this, pulls his taser and says, "Man, you need to let her go now." I let her go and raise my hands to head level. Karen spins around, kicks me, and then slaps me again. The owner of the shop says that's the third and fourth time she has assaulted that customer. Officer 1 then places Karen in cuffs and escorts her out to the car. Officer 2 is a short guy, about 5 feet 8 inches tall or so. Still pointing the taser at me and wanting to cuff me. I explained that was not going to happen as my wrist is too big for his cuffs, and that he would need zip cuffs, and that he needed to call a sergeant if he was actually going to try and arrest me. Officer 2 steps back and says, "Are you resisting arrest?" I said, "No, but I will be exercising my rights to a lawful investigation prior to arrest. You know, innocent until proven guilty, and that stuff, as I was the one defending myself from being assaulted by that screaming woman your partner just took outside. Now, if you want me cuffed while you determine what's going on so you feel safe, I fully agree to that. I'm just explaining that my wrist won't fit your metal cuffs." Officer 1 comes back in and says that Karen has been detained and is demanding a supervisor. The store owner pipes in with his side of the story. Officer 2, still pointing a taser at me, and explains that Karen assaulted me twice and was in the process of assaulting me a third time before I had restrained her. At this point, Officer 2 puts his taser away and then jokingly asks if he can see if the cuffs really won't fit. I hold out my right hand, and he pulls out his cuffs and is like, "Wow, they won't fit." For everyone's information, the minimum inside perimeter of the bracelet is 7.9 inches 20 centimeters when the ratchet is engaged at the first notch. The maximum perimeter is 6.5 inches 16 centimeters when the ratchet is engaged at the last notch. My wrist is around 10 inches. Officers 1 and 2 were both amazed that the cuffs would not actually fit me, and that even if they did, due to my size, they would not be able to cuff me behind the back. At this time, the sergeant shows up. He walks in, sees me, and says, "Hey Rusty, long time no see." I reply, "Hey Sarge." Long story shorter, Karen was arrested for assault, and yes, I pressed charges. From what I was told by the sergeant, this was her 12th incident for similar issues, but the first time she got violent with someone. Yay, lucky me. Story 4. I still remember that night like it was yesterday, even though it happened about 20 years ago. It was the mid-2000s, and my friends and I had this routine of hanging out at this small billiards place in the next town over. We'd go there pretty often, rent a table by the hour or play a few games, catch whatever sports were on TV, and just chat about life and stuff. For about 3 months, it was all good. No drama, no problems. We'd show up, play some pool, have a few drinks, and just enjoy each other's company. But then, one night, everything changed. We walked in, ready for our usual game, but there was this guy at our usual table. No big deal, right? We figured we'd just wait our turn. So we grabbed some drinks and started chatting. About 20 minutes later, my buddy goes up to the guy and says, "Hey man, we'd like to play next game if that's cool." The guy barely looks at him and just waves him off. "Yeah, whatever," he mumbles. We're all a bit put off, But we figure, okay, maybe he didn't hear properly. So we wait for the next game. But when it comes around, the guy just starts a new game without even acknowledging us. At this point, I'm getting a bit annoyed. I walk up to him and say, "Excuse me, we've been waiting to play. We'd like the next game, please." This lady who's been waiting too chimes in, "And I'd like the game after them if that's all right." The guy doesn't even look at us. He just keeps playing like we're not even there. More time goes by, and we're all getting pretty frustrated. Then, suddenly, the guy leaves the table and heads to the bathroom. We see our chance and quickly move to the table. We put our quarters in, and the balls come out except for the green 6 inches ball. Friend 1, "Hey, where's the 6 ball?" Friend 2, "I bet that jerk took it with him to the bathroom." Me, "You've got to be kidding me." At this point, we've had enough. I go to find the manager and explain what's been happening. Manager, "Look, I get it, but it's already 12:30. We're about to call last call and close up. I don't want to make a big scene by kicking him out now." Me, "Can we at least get another ball so we can play?" Manager, "Sure, I'll grab you one." The manager gets us another ball, and we start our game. A few minutes later, the guy comes out of the bathroom. He sees us playing and gets this smug look on his face. Then he heads out to the patio with his beer, and you guessed it, the green billiard ball. Friend 3, "Is he seriously taking that ball outside with him?" Me, "Looks like it. What a jerk." We try to keep playing, but it's hard to enjoy the game, knowing this guy is out there, probably feeling all pleased with himself for ruining our night. A little while later, the guy comes back in. Without warning, he just tosses the ball onto our table, scattering the balls we had set up and completely messing up our game. Then he saunters up to the bar just in time for last call. Friend 1, "I've had it with this guy. We should do something." Friend 2, "Like what? Start a fight? That's not going to solve anything." Friend 3, "I've got an idea. Why don't we follow him home and each call the highway patrol to report a suspected drunk driver?" Me, "Isn't that a bit extreme?" Friend 1, "After everything he's done, I say he deserves it." Friend 2, "I'm in." Me, "Well, all right, let's do it." So that's what we did. 3 of us agreed to the plan, while our 4th friend decided to sit it out. We waited for the guy to leave, then followed him in our cars. We used our push-to-talk phones to coordinate our calls to the police. Me, "Okay, I'm making the first call now." Dispatcher, 911, "What's your emergency?" Me, "I'd like to report a suspected drunk driver. The car is swerving between lanes and driving erratically." Dispatcher, "Can you describe the vehicle?" Me, "It's a make and model of car, color. The license plate is number." Dispatcher, "Thank you for the information. We'll dispatch an officer to investigate." After I hung up, my friends made similar calls, each adding details like the car almost hitting another vehicle or running a stop sign. We didn't know exactly where the guy lived, but we figured it had to be close since he was at a neighborhood bar. Our friend who didn't make a call was tailing the guy, keeping us updated on his location. After about 15 minutes, we got the call we'd been waiting for. Friend 4, "Guys, you won't believe this. A cop just pulled in between me and the jerk. They're turning on their lights now." We all cheered, feeling a sense of victory. The next week, we checked the local police blotter. Sure enough, there was a report of a guy arrested after multiple calls about erratic driving. He wasn't charged with driving while intoxicated, but he did get busted for driving on a suspended license. Looking back, I know what we did was pretty petty, but at the time, it felt like justice. That guy had ruined our night for no reason, and we felt like he deserved some payback. Was it the most mature way to handle things? Probably not, but I can't say I regret it. Sometimes, you've got to stand up to jerks, even if your methods are a bit questionable. Story 5. I was not directly involved in this interaction, but it did occur on the same street I belonged to, and the tree could be seen from my house as it was less than 100 feet away. Some brief backstory is necessary to understand the seriousness of Karen's situation. Karen, along with her daughter, owns a house on a street with 7 other people, including me. This street is somewhat private. Although it isn't gated, it shares many resources and services that set it apart from the rest of the community. Basically, it was originally empty land in the middle of an already existing neighborhood bought privately by a group who built houses and sold them. For these reasons, this street has a homeowners association representative, and they share things like lawn maintenance and street repair costs. For example, the street splits the cost for repairing things like street lights, and the people that mow the lawns do the entire street at a time. Karen and her daughter are rarely seen on this small street, and they instead rent their house out to newcomers every few months or so. I have only seen them in person a few times since I moved here. On their most recent return a few days ago, they decided to have the tree in their front yard trimmed down before the next tenant arrives. Unfortunately, this tree belongs to the street, and she has no jurisdiction tampering with it, and she knows it. She made a failed attempt to call the homeowners association board, and when they did not reply right away, she took the initiative to cut the tree to her desires. This morning, a group of workers came in a truck with loud power tools to cut several branches off this large tree. The Indian gentleman came out first to complain, and later came out the old lady. They have both been living here for a long time and understand the rules clearly. The conversation was distant from my house, especially since I chose not to go outside and join the argument, but it went along the lines of the following. Indian gentleman: "Hey, you can't cut that tree." Karen: "Well, it's on my property." "Actually, it's not. Tell them to stop cutting it. You need to contact the homeowners association first." I did, and they didn't respond, so it's not a big deal if I just trim it, okay? Old lady: "Any change affects the value of the entire street and every house on it. You have to stop it." "Oh my goodness, it's just a tree. Just give me a break, okay?" For those who don't understand, the entire street sort of has a common theme to it, where every house has a similar design and each having a tree is part of said design. Stripping this mature tree down to a couple of branches completely ruins the look of the street. The Indian gentleman walks up to the workers, who are basically already finished. "Guys, please stop for now." Karen steps in front of him. "Hey, back off." He puts his hand on her shoulder to push her away. "Karen, stop being aggressive." It goes on for about 30 minutes. The entire time Karen is being extremely rude, interrupting people, and basically whining incessantly. The Indian gentleman, the old lady, and the other neighbors watching knew they couldn't do anything without contacting the homeowners association first. They certainly didn't want to touch her, and they couldn't do anything with the workers because they were hired by Karen. This entire time her daughter didn't say anything and stood at the doorway of her house. The workers continued with the tree, and in no time it was finished. About an hour passes when the Indian gentleman and the old lady return with news from the homeowners association. It was true that Karen couldn't touch the tree, and everyone knew that. But what Karen didn't know was that the consequences were extremely straightforward and relentless. When they began to explain to Karen her remaining options, she had an annoying smirk of victory on her face, but it didn't take long for it to be completely wiped away. The homeowners association policies dictate that she has to completely replace the tree, which means that she needs to hire people to come dig the tree out, pay for a new tree, pay for it to be planted, and pay for the lawn that will be inevitably torn up as the tree is being replaced. If she does not comply, her house will be put on a lien and no longer considered an extension of our private street. For those who aren't fluent in real estate terms like me, this means that Karen cannot sell, rent, or refinance her property until said conditions are met. Even if she complies right away, her new tenant will be delayed at least a week or more while the tree is being dug up. This is just such a fitting end to her entitled attitude. In total, she will be set back thousands of dollars for essentially nothing except lacking consideration of those around her. I'm not entirely clear on the costs, but I expect it to be at least $10,000. Moral of the story: don't mess around with trees. They have countless lawsuits and homeowners association strings attached to them. And don't be rude to your neighbors. Edit. I reread my post and decided that I didn't do as good a job as I wanted to explain why Karen deserves her justice. I forgot to mention that she did flip everyone off and threatened to call a lawyer. She acted really childish overall and kept repeating the same phrase of something like, "You can't touch me, I did nothing wrong," over and over while interrupting people. Her daughter wasn't too much better, but you can't really blame her for trying to defend her mother a little bit. She probably just didn't understand what her mother really did. Her daughter was like, "Stop shouting, don't get aggressive," etc. Edit 2. After talking with some of my neighbors, it turns out Karen was a nuisance long before I moved here. A long time ago, there was a rule that you couldn't park your car on your driveway, which most people thought was silly. I think it's silly too. The rule was set when the street was built because people wanted it to look nice or something. Apparently, Karen took this rule way too seriously and kept on giving tickets to the old lady's husband. I mean, come on. What a way to get to know your next-door neighbor. Before long, the entire street voted the law out 7-1. Guess who wanted to keep it? Karen also locked the back gate of the street closed and didn't give the key to anyone because she thought she was entitled to control who gets to use the community gate. Too bad I wasn't there at the argument because I could have transcribed more of what they said. Karen kept on trying to change the subject and put the blame on the old lady for letting her bamboo fall into her backyard. Dude. The old lady was sick that day? So what a jerk for arguing with a sick old lady. I'd also like to mention the trees. Yes, trees, I realized after looking closer at her yard. She cut 2 cypress trees and a deciduous tree that grows red seeds in hard pods that I forgot the name of. The cypress trees she cut were towering and magnificent. She trimmed them down halfway, and they will never regrow because both are at least 20 years old.